If it ain't Baroque, don't fix it. That's what Cogsworth said in Beauty and the Beast. And you should trust him because he's a clock. Well, if it ain't Baroque, don't fix it. That's what we're gonna talk about, Baroque fashion. Fashion of the 17th century. Fashion of the 1600s. I woke up this morning and I was struck by an epiphany to talk about something that nobody ever asked for. Why? Because we hate views on this channel. My name is Teresa and this is Baroque fashion. I've been secretly Googling Baroque still lives and looking at them. Glistening grapes, dead pheasants, candle wax dripping on a dark wood table. I like it. I like it a lot. That's why this video exists. I will give you a brief tour of Baroque history. History of the 1600s, the 17th century. The 17th century, which is the 1600s. Don't you think it's very confusing that the century is the 1600s, but then you have to call it the 17th century? In any event, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get the history. It's gonna be fun. I've always wanted to pretend I was a professor, so let's do this. Let's get educated. Baroque in Portuguese means uneven and odd. Much like me. The Baroque era was a troubling era for Europe because of the 30 Years' War, the Counter-Reformation, rising absolutisms. England was in turmoil. There was the English Civil War, a fight in Parliament between the Roundheads and the Royalists, also known as the Cavaliers. They're all for the Church of England. They like a little fun in their religious proceedings. They like a little bit of maximalism, shall we say. They like a nice candlestick, gold, some coin. They like to flaunt the gold and the coin. Roundheads, by the way, is how they did their hair. Monk haircut. The Roundheads were kind of like the people who would come into the church and say, do you need all that gold, all those idols? Do you really need to dress so elaborately? Why not just declutter it all? Leave yourself the bare essentials, you know, like a pew, get down on your knees in darkness and pray so that you don't have all these material distractions from you and God. It's kind of like a war between minimalists and maximalists. The maximalists here with all their floral arrangements. They like gold, some idols, elaborate rituals. The Roundheads, puritanical, minimalists. They want to wear black, Spartan clothes, basic essentials, you know, capsule wardrobes. And they're very judgy. Like everybody at this time was very judgy of each other. I mean, like they're kind of judgy now. I shudder to think if Twitter was a thing back in the Baroque period, there would be a culture war here. A culture war is not a new thing. Oh my God, America's gripped in a culture war. Well, there was a culture war here and people lost their heads and people were so disgusted by their neighbors that they just sailed across to Plymouth Rock, established a colony to have the freedom to not have fun. The English Civil War, it definitely led to some bloodshed. Charles I, the king, was beheaded by his own people. That'll wake you up in the morning because that was the first time a monarch was beheaded by his people. It wasn't the last time. His son, Charles II, he was exiled. Oliver Cromwell, the head of the Roundheads, became, I want to say prime minister, but I wouldn't be a very good professor if I did, the Lord Protector of England. And he ruled for 11 strict and dreary years. He banned a lot of entertainment. He banned the theater. Nobody had any fun. Work, you go home and you pray, and that was your life. So after 11 years, he died. The people, they didn't want any more of this authoritarian minimalism. They wanted their theaters back. They wanted their pubs back. They brought in Charles I's son, Charles II, entering us into the era of Restoration. In 1994, there was a movie called Restoration starring Robert Downey Jr. and Sam Neill. That's Dr. Grant from Jurassic Park. He played Charles. He had a lot of hobbies. Looking through a telescope. He was a ladies' man. He had a mistress. I think her name was Polly or Nell. Nell was a very popular name around this time. And there was a lot of wigs, which we'll get into, the long, curly Captain Hook wig. Oh, and Meg Ryan was in this, and it was not a rom-com. She gave birth to a baby. Robert Downey Jr. was the court physician. He helped Meg Ryan deliver her baby through a C-section, which was horrifying back in the day. They don't make movies like that nowadays. Can you imagine any studio coming out with a movie set during the Baroque period, during the 1600s? Meanwhile, the Netherlands remained mostly untouched by the 30 Years' War. The Netherlands was where the first still life came to fruition. Now we've arrived at the meat and potatoes, the Baroque wardrobe essentials. Oliver Cromwell ruled for 11 years. He was very stern. The whole atmosphere was very dreary, lacking in fun, in entertainment, in debauchery. That period of rule ended upon his death. The people have decided they want a monarch. Charles II was known as the Merry Monarch. He knew how to have fun. He knew how to have a good time, and that brought in the Restoration. There was dancing, there was celebration. Charles had a lot of mistresses. He liked a plump woman, and he liked to take them to the theater. So that's the vibe. That's the merry atmosphere we are dealing with. We're having a lot of fun. We're having a lot of affairs. We're going to the theater. But that finds its way into fashion, into women's fashion, which is honestly a very sumptuous look instead of the more structural silhouettes and the stiff, rough collars of the Elizabethan age. Instead of gowns with pieces that you have to assemble, detachable sleeves, detachable bodice, detachable skirts, we have the mantua. And it was like a loose gown that you just drape over your clothes. It was like the woman's version of the morning gown that men wore, and it eventually evolved into the billowy, flourishing gown we see now. Gold and blue was the Pantone color of the moment. So many paintings had women with a flowy gold gown with a blue sash. The stiff, starched, standing collar was replaced by a sloping collar. You look like you're tumbled, you look like you just had a nooner, but you also look like your dress is falling over your body like liquid, like water. It's fluid, it's flourishing. That's the Baroque era. As for hair, they had the center part very tight, very pressed down, pomaded, and then they had these ringlets. It was not the most attractive hairstyle in my humble opinion. Everybody had a curl. They like a good curl. Women had the coolest hats, a wide brim, rakish hat. It was like the Three Musketeer hat. Women wore men's hats. It looked very dashing. I suppose the reason why their hair was drawn straight to the back and then flattened into a flat top with ringlets is to accommodate the wide brim, rakish highwayman hat. Flowy, billowy silhouette, sloped shoulders, billowy gown. You look like you're tumbled. You might have the appearance of a nipple, and that's completely okay because we're in a time of fun. We're trying to be merry here. Merry men, merry women. We're trying to live our best life. Every hour is wine o'clock and indulge in a little bit of debauchery. So there might be a nipple. There's definitely a lot of pearls, pearl accessories like pearls in your hair, pearls on your dress, and rosettes. I can look at women's clothes in the Baroque era all day. I subscribe to a few Instagram accounts, period paintings and costumings. Anytime somebody posts a Baroque era gown, I definitely look a little closer and I may like the photo. I always forget to like people's photos because, you know, it's just too much effort. I just scroll and scroll, but a nice Baroque era photo, great color palette, blue and gold, shimmery, and everything is liquefied. I like how this era celebrates the Rubenesque, thicker woman. It's very body positive here. She's got ample thighs. She's fleshy. She has small boobs though. They didn't draw big boobs. Nobody had big boobs. Everybody had A cups. Men's fashion at this time is what I would describe as dashing. It's that highwayman look, Three Musketeers, the D'Artagnan look, a wide, flat collar, usually made of lace. Doublets now were higher waisted and fit more loosely. So instead of laces tying your doublet together, you now have buttons and hooks and eyelets. Billowy is the key here. The sleeves were billowy, dare I say, puffy. Everybody looked like they came with their own wind machine. There was a lot of volume. Nothing was shrinking down. Nothing was geometric. They went to the fabric store, to the weavers. Give me that fabric. I want it to be comfortable. Drape it all over me. Gone are the hoses, the tights, replaced by breeches. This is the era of cape and dag. Slouchy boots with big flappy lips, wide brim hats, the Three Musketeer hats, the highwayman hat, usually adorned with a buckle or a feather, very rakish. Hair was shoulder length for men and curly. And in the paintings that I've seen, they were kind of wispy, curly hair. Facial hair was the thing. You got the mustache, it was a longer mustache. You also got some wispy chin hairs. Rubens himself, he had a wispy mustache. He liked to draw ruddy faces. Everybody kind of had rosacea going on in his painting because he likes a nice ruddy face. I think it's from drinking. It's the red blush you get from drinking. It's a life of drinking and eating shellfish. There was a lot of gout in this era. At least this era produced a really good hat. You look very dashing in this hat. Plumage was spectacular. You had great sword accessories. Usually men wore a baldric, which is kind of like a sash around your chest where you can hang your daggers, your swords, your pistols, or whatnot. You had a short cape and a long cape. The cloak and dagger look, but the wispy hair and the middle part with the ringlets around your face, that's why you have this hat to cover that up. The men did not shy away from laces. They had lace collars, they had lace trim around their hosieries. Meanwhile, around this time, Louis XIV was going bald. So he indulged in a good wig, or several hundred good wigs, the periwig. This is what I refer to as the pirate captain wig, the Captain Hook wig. This will eventually evolve into the powdered wig of the 18th century, the wigs of the founding fathers. But right now we're comfortable in a nice dark curly wig. I forgot to mention what kind of shoes women wore. They were into a good mule. A long time ago, I read this humongous book written in the 50s called Forever Amber, and it took place during the Restoration era. And basically it was the Restoration Baroque version of Gone with the Wind, which I also read. I had a lot of time, and it was all about a woman's journey and obsession with a man. The 1600s saw the beginning of fiction novels. Daniel Defoe, he wrote Robinson Crusoe, and Moll Flanders, a woman's journey into the real world of prostitution. The type of fiction was very popular in the 1600s, person's journey into the world. It was like the first time anybody's ever read a story about somebody's journey from their small little village, going into the city, experiencing life that was very new to some people. Forever Amber, though written in the 50s, was about a woman's journey from her small town into the heart of London during the 1600s. She made it her life's mission to find this man, the love of her life, her obsession, her baby daddy. He's always toying with her emotions. Sometimes he would sleep with her, sometimes he would reject her. Then it turned out that he was married, and he ended up contracting the plague, and she didn't get the plague. So then she nursed him through the plague cart piled with bodies rolling around, bells ringing, bring out your dead. She changed his bedclothes, his sweaty, disgusting bedclothes. He had these boils all over his body, on his groin, and she like lanced his pustules. Afterward, he didn't even care that she nursed him through the plague. She could have gotten the plague herself, but somehow she had like natural immunity or something. There was some point where he's like, you better stay away from my family, Amber. I'm gonna tell you the last time. I don't want anything to do with you. You're just a bit on the side. In the end, Amber discovered what she was striving for was not worth having. That was horribly disappointing after 1,000 pages in a month of my life. Another bit of literature that was very popular during the Baroque era was diaries. So there's a little bit of trivia for you if you ever go on Jeopardy. Who is the famous diarist during the Restoration era? Then it's Samuel Pepys. P-E-P-Y-S. He wrote about the Great Fire of 1666. Pepys. I used to call him Pepys, but it's not Pepys, it's Pepys. So if you made it this far, you probably learned a lot of unuseful things that will never help you in life. But if you were at a party and the Baroque era ever arises, then you would have something to talk about. Captain Hook wigs, Restoration, the movie, and you've learned about the massive tome that is Forever Amber, written by Kathleen Winsor. She's dead because she wrote it in the 50s. She's probably dead, and if she's not, then she has one foot in the grave. And if you are entertained in the smallest way, please do something to these buttons, touch them all, touch all of them. Good night and good luck.